Hello, happy Friday. Welcome back to another episode for this podcast. Just chugging through the month of August now, already the fifth day of this month. And yeah, stuff's kind of dead at this point. We are officially in to the dog days of summer. Sure, there's been some stuff in the NHL that's happened lately, but with regards to the Pittsburgh Penguins, just it's very quiet right now. And, I think it's quiet for, again, a lot of teams around the league. I think you're going to see some stuff start to pick up towards the end of the month, right around maybe start of September, because that's when the training camp comes in. I think teams will start to get a little more active. I think right now some guys are on vacation. They're enjoying their family time. You're not going to get much for the next week or two. But for today's episode, we're going to get into something I saw in a mailbag on The Athletic. I think it came from Rossi. It had to do with potentially Malkin switching positions at some point during this 4-year contract. I'm going to get into if that makes sense for him and when I think that would happen. Also going to get into a question that longtime listener Alan T. Yoder asked me, and I think it's something pretty legitimate considering that Malkin he's coming up on 1,000 games this season. We're going to get into that, and then we're going to go around the league a little bit and I give my thoughts on some of the latest things that have happened these last couple of days. Notably, the Jonathan Huberdeau contract. So that's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. Also, just thank you all for still listening at this point. I know August, very quiet again around the league. If you're still listening at this point, you must really love hockey. And, maybe you just love listening to me blabber about this team for 30 minutes, 3 days a week, even though they're not going to be playing games until October. But again, thank you all so much for listening is, I guess, my main statement out of that. Getting into the first topic. So we'll just get into Alan's question here to start off the show. And if I can get to that in my DMs here, don't know why I'm up at my DMs. Alan asks, I was listening to DK's Daily Shot earlier this week, and for those that do not listen to that, go check it out. He's still doing 5 episodes a week. That's Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. He does a very good job with Penguins content. If you like my show, I think you would like his as well. And he said he mentioned about resting guys like Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. I personally think that would do them so good. I was thinking if this were the case, would Sullivan set it up to where they would look at resting Malkin for maybe one game so that he can play his 1,000th game at PPG? What would you think of manipulating the lineup for a major milestone like that? Honestly, I'm fine with that, Alan, and for everyone out there that's listening to this. Right now, so if you go to the Penguins schedule, right now, Gino is scheduled to play his 1,000th game. Yeah, against the Chicago Blackhawks on November 20th. That would be in the United Center. Not good. That would be also if he played his first full 19 games of the regular season. So, yeah, I think any milestone like that should be celebrated at home at PPG. I mean, Sid scored his 500th last year against the Flyers, of course, and that came right at PPG. I mean, he could have done it a few games before on the road. Didn't saved it for his longtime nemesis. And the Penguins, honestly, their longtime nemesis as well. And that's a moment again. Stuff like that should be celebrated at home. And I know it was obviously great that the Penguins won those 3 Stanley Cups in this era overall, but still, man, part of me wishes they could have won at least one of those at home, if not more than that, just because the city would have went even crazier than it already did. For those 3 wins. But for something like this, I think I would be in favor of it. As you say, Alan, you look at the schedule right now, the Penguins, if Malkin were to miss even any game during that 19-game stretch, the earliest he would be able to do it is November 23rd against the Calgary Flames. That's the Wednesday right before Thanksgiving. Now, if he were to miss 2 games, he could also do it November 25th at Philadelphia. If he missed 3, it would be November 26th against the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's funny. I'm going to the game on the 15th against Toronto. That's my birthday. I'll be turning 25 that day. So I would be missing Gino's 1000th game if he were to play all 19 games by 3 games. Like that hurts. Like I was this close. Basically, if he played 3 more games last year, you know, I would basically have it. So definitely a little upset about that, but whatever. But as for your question, Alan, I wouldn't be too upset if they did that. Again, I think it would be kind of the right call. And as for your overall point with what DK was talking about, I kind of agree with him. I think at times, the team, they should be resting some of their star players, especially towards the late stages of the regular season. You go back to, say, this year, right? Penguins are comfortably in a playoff spot. Sure, they're jockeying for seeding and all this stuff, but going into that last week and a half of the regular season, I don't think you need to be playing your regulars every game unless they just have like a massive milestone to hit. I think at times, you could rest them a little bit. And, you can honestly just, do what, some teams in the NFL do, so say, you're the number 1 seed going into the final week, no one can catch you. Yeah. Like you're just going to call up a bunch of your AHL guys and you're going to play them. You don't really give a crap about the results. Sure. There's definitely some added risk in that because, the players, it could take them a little more time to get back in the game swing when they come back in the playoffs and all that stuff. But, I do think the rewards for this, I guess, outweigh the risks. If that makes sense, then I think I'm 99.9% sure that it does. But I do think it's fine. Obviously, I would love all 3 of them to stay healthy this year, but it's the Penguins here, so honestly, who knows if they are going to all 3 stay healthy? I'm sure 1, 2, if not all 3 of them are probably going to get hurt at some point, and I'm sure half the team is going to be out for some unknown reason this coming season. But I do think, if a playoff spot is basically all but clinched, you say the magic numbers at like 5 or something like that towards the late stage of the regular season, I would be resting them a little bit more, not playing them as many minutes as they normally play. Just calling players up, you're seeing what you have in some of the minor leaguers and stuff like that. I know it's kind of frowned upon in the NHL. You don't really see a lot of teams do that because it's just not how they're wired, they're programmed. Again, the NFL, it's a bit different. The NBA, a little bit different. I mean, this past season, the Lakers, they were out of the playoff race like 2-3 weeks left, and they're like resting LeBron James. Like they don't even want to. He doesn't even want to play because there was basically just no point to him playing when the team is not going to get in the playoffs. So I'm not obviously saying that's not going to happen with the Penguins, but I think you're getting my drift, right? If the games are kind of meaningless down the stretch, I mean, I don't really care if they have to rest. If I don't really care if they have to miss a few games. Is what I'm trying to say. But again, that sums up my thoughts on that. And then as for the Malkin thing, Alan, and to everyone out there, would love if that moment happens at home. 19 games away from 1,000, he's going to hit it this season. I'm looking to make sure if I can find if there's any other big milestones that are probably going to happen this season. Just double checking here. Yeah, Chris Letang. So he's at 941 games played. He is also likely to hit 1,000 this year. If I can find 22, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. I think his 1,000th game is not going to come until sometime in February. I will have the exact date for you all probably down in the comments. To be honest, the fact that I didn't even have that prepared is pretty embarrassing. To be honest, I don't want to just be counting here on a podcast. I think that's just kind of embarrassing. But he is also scheduled to hit 1,000, and if he could have that be done at home too, that would be massive. And he's also has 650 points. He's also potentially going to have 700th point this season. Would love to have that at home as well. And for more for Gino, 54 points away from 1,200 for his career. Would love to have him get that at home as well. So a lot of milestones coming up. as you said, Alan, I would be more than willing to have them potentially manipulate some of the games to make sure Malkin and Letang have that honor at home. It can definitely happen for Malkin. I'm going to double check on Letang, see when that game falls to see if, hey, if he's fully healthy, maybe it comes at home, maybe it's on the road. But I'm going to double check that here pretty quickly after the show and just probably just put that in the comments or something like that. But coming up in the next segment, we're going to get to something that I saw in that Rossi mailbag that a reader had from about Malkin moving to wing, and I'll give my thoughts on that, on just when that could occur at some point. But before I get to that, if you haven't tried the Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Ready? It's delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right, Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite cookie dough chunk puffs. Have a light and chewy texture. Real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All of the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it is healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. You can run to built.com right now and snag a box for you and the family. It will be the perfect treat. Or you can find a really good hiding place and just hoard them for yourself. Like all Built Bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and they're tasty. Chocolate covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. They are so good. You can go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So let's get into what I saw in Rossi's mailbag when someone asked about Malkin. And Rossi says this. Inevitably, and against his probably true desire, I think Malkin is going to probably play more on the wing on his 4-year contract, especially if, and I suspect is in the cards, the Penguins aren't playing for JT Miller next offseason. Miller can play center or on the wing. So, we're going to continue to see this JT Miller stuff until he either signs an extension in Vancouver or he's traded to somewhere to some other team and sign an extension there. Until either of those two things happen, you're going to continue to see Miller linked to the Penguins. Again, I've been told that he wants to come home. I've heard that from multiple people. And he's, made it clear to the person that, he was talking to at the time that, he would love nothing more than to return to Pittsburgh and play for his hometown team. And again, he's a UFA next summer. The Penguins, they will have the cap money to do it. Brian Dumoulin's contract comes off the book. Jason Zucker's contract comes off the book. There's over $9 million right there to give him. There you go. I mean, and if Dumoulin walks, you still have defensemen in your system that, hopefully this season can show that they can play, top pairing minutes next year when he's probably off the team. But in terms of Malkin potentially not being at center at some point down the road, I think that only happens if his production really dries up. If he's not close to a point per game player and they're trying to get him back to the way he used to be, I could see that Mike Sullivan going, if he's still the coach at that point, hey, this isn't working, Gino. We're going to put you on wing, take some of the responsibilities off your hands, like say face-offs and playing more structure in the defensive zone, some of that stuff, and just let you roam free and do your thing in the offensive zone. And maybe that would work for someone like Gino. And but also there's the chance that he could age more gracefully and he continue to have his responsibilities at both ends of the rink, and you wouldn't need to make that move. Right now, in my opinion, I don't see him moving to wing, but say he were to at some point, and the Penguins are able to sign JT Miller next year for a massive extension, 7 times 8 something, 7 times 9 something, you could theoretically play JT at center, move Malkin to his wing, and then you have a super line. You have 2 super lines at that point, especially if JT, has close to a season like he had last year in Vancouver this year. You can throw out Jake Gensel, Sidney Crosby, Brian Rust, JT Miller with Evgeni Malkin on your second line with potentially Ricard Raquel. Good luck to a lot of other teams stopping those 2 lines. Even, in your depth at that point, still not bad if you can bring back Danton Heinen. I know Kapanen's probably on the team. You have to figure out some of your bottom 6. Teddy Bluger, I think, comes off the market. Comes off his contract comes off the books. next year too. So you'll also have options to fill in some of those players in the bottom six just because you have a lot of cap space opening up again. Even though a good chunk of that would go to Miller in this hypothetical, but you know that's a scary top six. That's a scary looking forward group so far to say the least. And I think you would only see Malkin move to wing in that instance still if his production does right. I think if Miller were to come here next year, I think Malkin would start out as his center and JT would play on the wing because he can play either position. It doesn't really matter. He's great at center. He's great on the wing. He's had good productions at either position. So I don't really think it matters too much for him. I guess, but still, it would be a lot of fun. Wouldn't it? But you know, overall, I know this is probably not going to be the longest segment for the show. I do think the only time you see Gino move to wing is if he's just not playing well at center anymore, not putting up the usual production that he's doing, not scoring the goals, playing way more passive in the defensive zone, just kind of just going through the motions at that point, to be honest. Um, I think that's probably the only time you see that happen. Um, I'd like to think he's going to stay at center for most of that contract. Maybe, third year of that deal moves to wing. Maybe the last year of that deal moves to wing. But I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, if you're asking me. I think it's going to be, a little bit down the road. Um, I guess, but again, it would be a lot of fun to see JT and Gino on the same line together. If Miller comes to the Penguins next summer. And, I'll say this, people are going to sit here and probably tell me, well, you can probably get him on a massive discount. He'll come home and to play for the Penguins, take a 3 million discount. He's not going to do that. He will probably come home for maybe a little less money, but it ain't going to be like a 2 or 3 million discount. This is not going to be a Brian Russ situation who probably just left at least $1 million to $1.5 million per year on the open market. That is how much of a discount he took to come back to the Penguins. Even Gino, he's making 6.1 this year. Honestly, he probably left, I would say, up to $1 million, 1.2 million from the free agent market. Just because of how good of a player he still is. Letang, he's making the same amount of money. He easily left at least 2 million on the table, probably more than that, to be honest. But those are franchise cornerstones. Someone like Miller, that would be the first time he's even hitting unrestricted free agency in his career. He is not going to go out there and say, well, I'm just going to take this massive discount and blah, 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 blah. No, he'll take a little bit of a money discount, but he's still going to be a big ticket. He's going to command a lot of term, a lot of money, especially if he has a great year this year. Again, the Penguins, it'll be a bidding war if he does make it to the open market, if he's not traded or if the Canucks don't accept him at that point. So that wraps up this segment. Well, I touched on my thoughts on Evgeni Malkin moving to wing and when I think that could happen, and when honestly the only time that could happen, and why it would be definitely be a lot of fun to see JT and Gino together next year. Because sorry, Penguins fans, doesn't look like that's happening this year. It's just they don't have the cap for it right now. Probably don't have the assets for it. They're probably if they're going to get JT, they're going to have to wait until he becomes a free agent. Coming up in the final segment, I'm going to get to some news and notes around the league. I haven't done that in a while, so stick around for that coming up after this final commercial break. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So, late on Thursday night, we saw Jonathan Huberdeau extension in Calgary, 8 times 10.5. It's a high ticket. That's a big ticket for the Flames. I think in a way they had no choice with that one because, traded Kachuk, he didn't want to be there. Gaudreau left UFA. You got to show your fans something. You got to show them that you're still serious about winning. They were desperate. They had to do it. Is it an overpay? Probably. I'm not really sure if Huberdeau is ever going to hit 100 points again. But you got to bet on it. He's forward group wise outside of Elias Lindholm. Huberdeau is your best forward. He's obviously not Johnny Gaudreau, but he's still a very prolific player who is great with the puck on his stick, has a great shot, great first pass, great forechecker in the offensive zone. Just a really skillsy. That's like a weird way to describe him. Just a really good all around player overall. Again, almost 11 million per year, definitely high. That could be a trade by year 4, year 5. I could definitely see someone like the Arizona Coyotes uh, ending up trading for that contract at some point. But right now, the Flames, they basically had no choice about that. You're seeing some arbitration stuff this week. A couple caught my eye. New Jersey. They had the one with Miles Wood today, and then they had Jesper Bratt, 1 year deal. But he was a little over 5 million per for that one season. They're kind of punting on it. I think at this point, I think he's. They might have to do this again next year, though he also might be a UFA. I'll have to double check on that. But I actually no, I do think he's an RFA again next year. I think they're gonna have to do this again. I think the Devils are betting on him being like, okay, so you had a good year last year, right? Do it again, and then we'll be more confident about giving you your money. Because that I think was a really hard negotiation for New Jersey. And yes, we're back. I don't think it would have been like the equivalent to the Penguins' Dan Heinen. I think Heinen definitely would have asked for over 3 million on a multi-year deal. But I think the Penguins, they would have been kind of in the same situation, albeit a little less. Been like, hey, Danton, you were this good last year. Go out there and prove it again on another kind of this deal that we gave you. And then if you do that, we'll be more open to, giving you a multi-year deal with a bigger AAV. And I think that's where New Jersey is coming from with this. I understand from Tom Fitzgerald's standpoint. Bratt, very, very good player. Was one of the best on the Devils last year. He's going to have to be that good again if the Devils have any shot of making the playoffs this year. I think overall for them, you know, I think they're fine. I think their forward group is not bad. Defense is okay. It's just their goaltending. Is Vitek Vanecek going to be the guy? Mackenzie Blackwood, is he going to come back from injury and be all right? I think that's their biggest question right now. Lindy Ruff, I don't think he's a good coach. I don't think Tom Fitzgerald should have kept him. I think that's the main reason why I still have them a little bit below some other teams in the Metro. And I was talking with a friend the other day, and this person was telling me that they potentially put New Jersey over Pittsburgh, and I was like, what? Like, what are you basing that off of? It didn't make any sense to me. As for the Penguins, again, they're still top 3 team in this division. Carolina, New York, Pittsburgh. I think those are by far and away the top 3 teams in this division. Columbus, yeah, they added Johnny Gaudreau, but I don't think he's going to push them to be a playoff team. Islanders, they're kind of there too, but are they really going to, make a step forward? They really haven't done anything yet. They've been linked to Kadri. What's going to happen there? Philadelphia, they're obviously going to be good. New Jersey, I don't really trust them that much. I think Washington, they did make some improvements. I would say, them with Pittsburgh and Carolina and the Rangers, those are probably your top 4 teams again in Metro in some kind of order. I think the teams below them are non-playoff teams at this point. I think you're going to, I think that's how it's going to play out when next season starts and, as we go forward into that season. Otherwise, again, pretty quiet lately. Again, the Miles Wood stuff, the other stuff in New Jersey, Jonathan Huberdeau extension in Calgary. I think they want to probably try to get Mackenzie Weegar done and all that stuff. Right now, it's you feel the calm in the ocean is basically what we're going for right now. There's going to be stuff that happens some point this month. Hopefully we'll get something soon on Nazem Kadri. Again, what it looks like right now, for those that aren't paying attention, Colorado, I think, is up there. Islanders, for sure. I think the Red Wings have been linked to him. Those are the 3 main teams that, I've kind of circled a little bit. Maybe Dallas, if they can make that work. I don't really know if I think they have the cap space for that, but I don't really know if they're going to do that. But nope, we'll have to see. But, I really appreciate all of you listening to this one. I will get Chris Letang's 1,000th game. I'm going to put that down in the comment section, whether it's on the audio version or for the YouTube version. I'll put it right there for you all to see, to make sure. So I'll be doing that. Again, thank you all so much for listening to another episode of the show. I'll be back on Monday of next week. We're back to Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes for the rest of August. Apologize for not having that this week. A couple things came up with the vacation that I'm on. So again, thank you all so much for listening. I really do appreciate it, and I'll be back with another show on Monday.